The full moon rose slowly over the Darkfang pack, casting silver light across the sacred clearing. Tonight, the entire pack had gathered for the mating ceremony. Warriors stood in proud lines. Elders watched from their carved stone seats. And at the center of it, all stood the most feared alpha in the Northern Territories. Alpha Daemon. Strong, ruthless, untouchable. Every she-wolf dreamed of standing beside him as Luna. But tonight, fate had chosen someone no one expected. At the edge of the clearing stood a girl the pack had mocked her entire life. Lyra. The wolfless girl. The weak one. The girl no alpha would ever claim. Yet as she stepped into the clearing, her heart pounded with a truth she could not deny. The moon goddess had chosen her. Alpha Daemon was her mate. And tonight, he would reject her in front of everyone. What no one knew was that the girl they laughed at would one day return as the most powerful queen the wolf world had ever seen. Chapter 1. Lyra had spent her entire life trying to stay invisible. In the Darkfang pack, being wolfless meant being nothing. No wolf meant no strength. No strength meant no respect. While the other children learned to shift and run through the forest, Lyra stayed behind, listening to their laughter echo through the trees. Tonight was supposed to be like any other pack gathering. She planned to stay in the shadows. Watch quietly. Leave before anyone noticed her. But the moment she stepped into the clearing, something inside her chest stirred. A strange pull. A force drawing her forward. Her eyes lifted and locked onto him. Alpha Daemon. The bond hit her like lightning. Her breath caught. Her heart raced. Mate. The word echoed inside her mind. Her mate was the most powerful alpha in the entire territory. For a brief moment, hope flickered in her chest. Maybe fate had finally chosen her for something greater. Maybe tonight would change everything. But Lyra didn't notice the cold eyes watching her from beside the alpha. Selena. The she-wolf who had already decided she would become Luna. And Selena did not intend to lose. Chapter 2. The pull between them grew stronger with every step Lyra took. It felt like an invisible thread guiding her toward the alpha. She didn't even realize she had begun walking until the whispers started. The wolfless girl. What is she doing? Why is she walking toward the alpha? Lyra barely heard them. Her eyes were locked on Daemon. The bond between them pulsed like a heartbeat. For a brief moment, something flickered in the alpha's golden eyes. Recognition. He felt it too. The clearing slowly fell silent. Every wolf could sense the strange tension growing in the air. Lyra finally stopped a few feet away from him. Her voice trembled slightly, but she forced the words out. Alpha Daemon. The mate bond surged again. Stronger this time. Powerful. Unmistakable. A murmur spread across the pack. She's his mate. No, that can't be possible. The alpha's mate can't be a wolfless girl. Selena's expression darkened. Her hand slowly wrapped around Daemon's arm. Her voice was soft, but sharp enough for him to hear. You can't accept this, she whispered. You're the strongest alpha alive. The pack will never respect a wolfless Luna. Daemon's jaw tightened. His eyes moved from Lyra to the watching pack. Warriors. Elders. The wolves who expected strength from their alpha. And suddenly, the warmth in his gaze vanished. Lyra saw the change immediately. Fear crept into her chest. Daemon, she said softly. But the alpha stepped back. The movement felt like a blade, slicing through her heart. The clearing went completely silent. Daemon's voice echoed through the gathering. Cold. Powerful. Unforgiving. Lyra of the Darkfang pack. Her heart pounded violently. Every wolf held their breath. I reject you as my mate. The words crashed into her like thunder. Gasps exploded through the crowd. Some wolves laughed. Others whispered cruelly. The Wolfless girl really believed the Alpha would claim her. Selena smiled slowly. Lyra felt the mate bond shatter. Pain ripped through her chest. Her knees nearly buckled. But she refused to fall. Not here. Not in front of them. She lifted her chin and forced herself to meet Damon's eyes one last time. Then she spoke the words none of them expected. Then remember this night, Alpha. Her voice was calm now, stronger than before. Because one day, her eyes hardened. You will regret it. The pack burst into laughter. But Lyra had already turned away. She walked out of the clearing alone. Behind her, the laughter continued. And Damon watched her disappear into the dark forest. For a moment, something twisted painfully inside his chest. But he ignored it. Because he had no idea that the girl he had just rejected would one day return as the Queen of Wolves. Chapter 3. The cold night air cut through the forest as Lyra walked deeper into the darkness. Behind her, the lights of the Darkfang pack slowly disappeared among the trees. The laughter still echoed in her ears. Each step away from the pack felt heavier than the last. She had lost everything in a single moment. Her mate, her home, her place in the world. Lyra finally stopped beside a quiet river, the moon reflecting on the water like a broken mirror. Her body trembled as the pain from the broken mate bond spread through her chest. She sank to her knees. Tears finally slipped down her cheeks. Why? She whispered to the silent forest. For years, she had endured the pack's mockery. Their whispers, their cruel jokes about the wolfless girl. But she had believed the moon goddess would never choose someone like her as an alpha's mate unless there was a reason. Yet tonight, even fate had abandoned her. The wind suddenly shifted. A strange warmth spread through the air. Lyra wiped her tears and slowly lifted her head. The forest had gone completely silent. No insects. No birds. No wolves. Only the sound of the river, moving softly through the stones. Then she felt it. A pulse of energy deep inside her chest. Her heart began to beat faster. Stronger. Something stirred beneath her skin. Something ancient. Lyra gasped as a strange silver light flickered across her hands. Her breath caught in her throat. Impossible. Wolfless wolves didn't have power. They didn't feel the pull of the moon. They certainly didn't glow with ancient energy. Yet the silver light grew brighter. And suddenly, a soft voice echoed through the forest. Ancient. Powerful. And filled with quiet authority. Child of the forgotten bloodline. Lyra's eyes widened. The voice didn't come from the forest. It came from inside her mind. You were never meant to be weak. The silver light around her hands pulsed again. The wolves who mocked you. The voice softened. They do not yet know who you truly are. Lyra's heart pounded as the realization slowly formed. Her entire life had been a lie. She wasn't wolfless. She had simply never awakened. And now, something ancient had finally begun to stir. Far away, back in the Darkfang pack, Alpha Damon suddenly stopped in the middle of the clearing. A strange unease gripped his chest. For the first time since the rejection, the mate bond flickered again. Weak, distant, but still alive. And somewhere deep inside his instincts, the Alpha realized something terrifying. The girl he had rejected was far more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. Chapter 4. The silver light surrounding Lyra slowly faded, leaving the forest quiet once again. Her heart was still racing. For years, the pack had called her wolfless. Weak. Useless. But what she had just felt was undeniable. Power. Real power. Lyra slowly stood, staring at her trembling hands. What am I? She whispered. The ancient voice returned, calm and steady. You are what the moon goddess intended from the very beginning. The forest around her shimmered with faint silver mist. And slowly, a figure began to form in the moonlight. A massive wolf spirit stepped forward. Its fur glowed like starlight. Its eyes held centuries of wisdom. Lyra instinctively stepped back. "Who are you?" she asked. The spirit lowered its head slightly. "I am Arkan, guardian of the forgotten bloodline." Lyra's mind spun. Bloodline. Arkan's glowing eyes studied her carefully. "For generations, your family carried the blood of the Moon Queen." Lyra froze. The Moon Queen was more than a legend. She was the ruler of the ancient wolf kingdoms, the strongest wolf to ever exist. "But that's impossible," Lyra whispered. "My parents were ordinary wolves." Arkan's voice deepened. "They hid the truth to protect you." The wind moved gently through the trees as he continued. "Your power was sealed until the moment your heart truly broke." Lyra's chest tightened. "The rejection," she said quietly. Arkan nodded. "The pain awakened your true wolf." Lyra stared at the spirit wolf, her thoughts racing. All her life, she had believed she was nothing. But now, she was something far more dangerous. "Then teach me," she said finally. Her voice was no longer trembling. It was steady, determined. Arkan's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "The path ahead will not be easy. Power demands sacrifice." Lyra lifted her chin. "I have already lost everything." The spirit wolf studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. A proud, ancient smile. "Very well, future queen." The title echoed in the forest like distant thunder. And far away, in the Darkfang territory, Alpha Daemon woke suddenly in the middle of the night. His wolf growled restlessly inside him. The mate bond pulsed again. Stronger this time. Something had changed. Somewhere in the wilderness, the girl he had rejected was becoming something far more powerful than he could imagine. And one day, she would return. Chapter 5. The first days of training nearly broke Lyra. Arkan did not show mercy. From sunrise to moonrise, he pushed her beyond every limit she thought she had. Run. Fight. Control the energy inside her. At first, the power was wild. Unpredictable. Silver energy would burst from her hands and vanish just as quickly. More than once she collapsed into the forest dirt, exhausted and frustrated. "I can't control it," Lyra said one night, breathing heavily as she sat beside the river. Arkan's glowing form appeared beside her. "You are trying to control the power," he said calmly. "That is your mistake." Lyra frowned. "Then what should I do?" The ancient wolf looked toward the full moon rising above the trees. "You must accept it. The power you carry is not a weapon. It is your nature." Lyra slowly closed her eyes. For the first time since the rejection, she allowed herself to stop fighting the energy inside her. The silver warmth spread through her chest again. This time, it didn't hurt. It felt right. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet trembled slightly. Her eyes opened in shock. The river beside her glowed, faintly under the moonlight. Silver energy flowed gently around her body like living light. Arkan smiled. "The Queen's wolf is awakening." Far away, back in the Darkfang pack, things were not going well. Without realizing it, the pack had already begun to weaken. Hunting parties returned with little food. Border patrols reported strange movements from rival packs. Even the warriors had begun whispering. The moon goddess had chosen the alpha a mate, and he had rejected her. Some believed the pack was now cursed. One evening, Damon stood on the cliff overlooking the forest. His wolf was restless, unstable. The mate bond flickered again inside his chest. Stronger than before. For the first time since the rejection, a dangerous thought crossed his mind. What if he had made the greatest mistake of his life? Back in the forest, Lyra stood beneath the moon. Silver light surrounded her completely now. Her eyes slowly opened. They were no longer the dull gray she had known her entire life. They glowed softly with ancient power. The wolf of the Moon Queen had finally awakened. And the girl the pack had mocked was becoming something far greater than any of them had ever imagined. Chapter 6. Weeks passed in the quiet forest. Every night Lyra trained beneath the moon. The silver energy inside her had grown stronger. Wilder. But something was still missing. "You are holding back," Arkin said one evening as they stood in the clearing. Lyra frowned. "I'm doing everything you asked." The ancient spirit wolf shook his massive head. "You have learned to control the queen's power. But you have not yet met your wolf." Lyra froze. Her wolf? Every werewolf felt their wolf long before their first shift. But her entire life had been empty. Silent. Now her heart pounded. "Then how do I find it?" she asked. Arkin looked up at the moon, glowing brightly above them. "You don't find it. You surrender to it." Lyra stepped into the center of the clearing. The forest wind moved gently through the trees. She closed her eyes. For the first time, she stopped resisting the power inside her completely. The silver energy surged through her body. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Then she heard it. A low growl. Deep. Ancient. Powerful. Her eyes snapped open. The world around her changed. She could hear the wind moving through every leaf. The distant footsteps of animals miles away. Her senses sharpened in ways she had never imagined. And suddenly, pain shot through her body. Lyra cried out as the transformation began. Silver light exploded around her. Her bones shifted. Her muscles burned with new strength. The ground cracked beneath her claws as a massive wolf stepped forward from the light. Its fur shimmered like moonlight on water. Its eyes glowed with ancient power. Arkin bowed his head respectfully. "The Queen's wolf has returned." Miles away in Darkfang territory, chaos had begun. Warriors ran through the pack village. Alarm horns echoed through the night. A rival pack had crossed their borders. Alpha Daemon rushed into the clearing, his wolf raging beneath his skin. "What happened?" he demanded. A warrior knelt before him. "They attacked the northern hunting grounds, Alpha. And we couldn't stop them." Daemon's jaw clenched. The Darkfang pack had always been feared. No rival dared challenge them. Yet now enemies were testing their borders. The Alpha turned toward the dark forest beyond the village. Something deep inside him whispered the truth he didn't want to accept. Since the night he rejected Lyra, nothing had gone right. Back in the forest, the massive silver wolf stood proudly beneath the moon. Lyra's new form radiated quiet power. For the first time in her life, she finally felt complete. Chapter 7. The forest had never felt so alive. Lyra ran through the moonlit trees in her new wolf form, faster than the wind itself. The ground blurred beneath her paws. Every scent in the forest rushed toward her senses. Deer miles away. The distant howl of a lone wolf. Even the movement of leaves high above the trees. Power surged through her veins. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt unstoppable. She slowed as she reached the edge of the clearing where Arkin waited. The massive silver wolf shifted back into her human form. Her breathing was steady now. Controlled. Arkin studied her carefully. "You are learning quickly," the spirit wolf said. "But speed and strength alone do not make a queen." Lyra crossed her arms. "Then what does?" Arkin's glowing eyes turned toward the distant mountains on the horizon. "Leadership. Wisdom. And the courage to face the wolves who will fear your power." Lyra followed his gaze. "Those mountains, what's there?" Arkin's voice grew quiet. "The ancient wolf kingdoms." Lyra's eyes widened. Stories about the wolf kingdoms were older than any pack legend. They were said to be ruled by powerful alphas who controlled entire territories. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Arkin looked back at her. "Because when your power fully awakens, they will come looking for you." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. "Why?" The spirit wolf's answer was simple. "Because a true queen changes the balance of the entire wolf world." At that very moment, a powerful howl echoed across the distant mountains. It was deep, terrifying, the kind of howl that belonged to a powerful alpha. Lyra felt the ground vibrate slightly beneath her feet. Arkin's expression darkened. That is not a good sign. Far away in Darkfang territory, the pack warriors stood frozen as a group of unfamiliar wolves entered the clearing. At their center stood a towering alpha with dark fur and scarred eyes. His presence radiated pure dominance. Damon stepped forward slowly. "I don't remember inviting you into my territory," he said coldly. The rival alpha smiled. "I didn't come for permission." His gaze swept across the village. "I came because I heard something interesting." Damon's eyes narrowed. "What?" The rival alpha chuckled softly. "I heard the great alpha Damon rejected his fated mate." The warriors around them shifted uncomfortably. The rival alpha leaned closer. "You know what that means, don't you?" Damon's jaw tightened. The stranger's voice dropped to a whisper. "It means your pack is now weak." The wind blew through the clearing. For the first time in years, someone had openly challenged the Darkfang Alpha. Chapter 8. The tension in the Darkfang pack village was suffocating. Warriors surrounded the clearing, their eyes locked on the rival Alpha. No one spoke. The stranger stood calmly in the center, as if he already owned the territory. Damon stepped forward, his voice cold and sharp. "You've said enough. Leave my land." The rival Alpha smiled slowly. "Or what?" A low growl rolled through Damon's chest. Around them, warriors began shifting into their wolf forms. The air thickened with the scent of battle. But the rival Alpha didn't move. Instead, he tilted his head slightly. And then he gave a quiet signal. Suddenly, dozens of wolves burst from the surrounding forest. Dark shapes charging toward the village. The Darkfang warriors reacted instantly. The night exploded into chaos. Howls echoed across the territory as wolves clashed beneath the moonlight. Damon shifted mid-leap, his massive black wolf slamming into the rival Alpha. The two powerful wolves rolled across the clearing, claws tearing through the dirt. Around them, warriors fought desperately to defend their home. But something felt wrong. The Darkfang wolves were struggling. Their movements were slower, their strength weaker, as if the pack itself had lost its balance. The rival Alpha pinned Damon briefly before jumping back. "You feel it, don't you?" he taunted. Damon growled fiercely. "Feel what?" The enemy Alpha's eyes gleamed. "The curse. You rejected the moon goddess's bond. And now your pack is paying the price." Damon lunged again with a furious roar. But deep inside, a small voice whispered that the rival Alpha might be telling the truth. Miles away in the silent forest, Lyra suddenly stopped running. Her wolf ears twitched. The wind carried distant sounds toward her. "Battle." Her chest tightened as the mate bond pulsed faintly again. Something terrible was happening at Darkfang. Arkin appeared beside her. "You feel it," he said quietly. Lyra's glowing wolf eyes turned toward the distant horizon. "Yes." Her voice was calm, but her mind was torn. That pack had humiliated her, rejected her, left her to die. So why did the bond still pull at her heart? Arkin studied her expression. "The choice is yours," the ancient spirit said. "You can ignore them, or you can prove what kind of queen you truly are." Lyra stood silently beneath the moon. And far away, The battle continued. The fate of the Darkfang pack hung in the balance. Chapter 9. The wind carried the distant sounds of battle through the forest. Howls. Growls. The clash of wolves fighting for survival. Lyra stood silently beneath the moon. Her silver wolf eyes stared toward the distant Darkfang territory. The mate bond pulsed again in her chest. Weak, but impossible to ignore. Arkin watched her carefully. "You can walk away," the ancient spirit said. "They rejected you. They humiliated you. Their fate is not your responsibility." Lyra remained silent. Images from the past flooded her mind. The pack members who had laughed at her. The cold eyes of the warriors who watched her rejection. And Damon, standing before everyone as he denied their bond. Her chest tightened. But then she remembered something else. The younger wolves who had once smiled at her. The elders who had quietly offered kindness. Not everyone in the pack had hated her. Some had simply been too afraid to speak. Lyra slowly lifted her head. "The pack made mistakes," she said quietly. "But innocent wolves will die tonight." Arkin's glowing eyes narrowed. "And what about the alpha who rejected you?" Lyra's voice grew calm. Steady. "This isn't about him anymore." Silver energy began to ripple across her fur. "This is about who I choose to become." Arkin smiled faintly. The answer had been given. Without another word, Lyra turned toward the distant horizon. Then she ran. The forest blurred as her powerful silver wolf raced through the night. Faster than she had ever run before. Back in the Darkfang village, the battle had grown desperate. Several warriors lay injured along the edges of the clearing. The rival alpha circled Damon slowly. "You're weakening," the enemy taunted. Damon's black wolf growled fiercely. But his breathing had grown heavier. The rival alpha lunged. The two wolves crashed violently into the dirt again. This time, the enemy was stronger. Faster. Damon struggled to push him back. Then suddenly, every wolf in the clearing froze. A powerful howl echoed across the night sky. But this howl was different. Ancient. Commanding. Filled with undeniable authority. The sound rolled across the battlefield like thunder. Even the rival alpha stopped moving. All eyes turned toward the forest. And from the shadows, a massive silver wolf stepped into the moonlight. Her fur shimmered like liquid silver. Her glowing eyes burned with quiet power. The battlefield fell completely silent. Because every wolf present instinctively understood one thing. A queen had arrived. Chapter 10. Silence fell across the battlefield. Every wolf stood frozen. The massive silver wolf stepped slowly into the clearing. Moonlight shimmered across her fur like living light. Her glowing eyes swept calmly across the battlefield. The rival wolves shifted uneasily. Something about her presence felt overwhelming. Ancient. Powerful. Even the rival alpha took a cautious step back. "Who are you?" he growled. Lyra did not answer. Instead, she took another step forward. The ground beneath her paws seemed to tremble slightly. Behind her, the Darkfang warriors stared in disbelief. Some of them recognized her scent. But their minds refused to accept what they were seeing. Damon slowly stood to his feet. His black wolf stared at the silver wolf in shock. The mate bond inside him suddenly surged with overwhelming force. Stronger than it had ever been before. It was impossible to ignore now. His wolf knew the truth immediately. "Lyra." The rival alpha snarled impatiently. "Enough of this." He lunged forward, claws flashing through the air. But before he could reach her, Lyra moved. Faster than any wolf on the battlefield. The silver wolf vanished in a blur of light. A thunderous impact echoed through the clearing. The rival alpha crashed violently into the dirt several meters away. Gasps rippled through the watching wolves. The enemy struggled to stand again. But Lyra was already there. Her glowing eyes burned with quiet authority. "You came into this territory," her voice echoed through the minds of every wolf present, "and threatened wolves who could not defend themselves." The rival alpha bared his teeth. "You think you can stop me?" Silver energy flickered around Lyra's form. "I know I can." The enemy alpha charged again with a furious roar. The two wolves clashed beneath the moon. But this time, the fight ended quickly. Lyra's power was overwhelming. Within seconds, she pinned the rival alpha to the ground. Her glowing eyes locked onto his. "Leave," her voice commanded. "Take your wolves, and never return." The rival alpha hesitated, but the ancient authority in her voice was undeniable. Slowly, he lowered his head in submission. Around them, his warriors began retreating back into the forest. Within moments, the battlefield was empty. The Darkfang pack had been saved. But no one celebrated, because every wolf was staring at the same figure. The silver wolf, standing proudly in the center of the clearing. Lyra slowly shifted back into her human form. The silver glow faded around her. Her calm eyes moved across the stunned warriors. Finally, her gaze landed on Damon, the alpha who had rejected her. And for the first time since that night, the entire pack understood the truth. The girl they had cast aside had returned to something far greater. Chapter 11. The battlefield had gone completely silent. The rival wolves were gone. The danger had passed. Yet no one moved. Every warrior in the Darkfang pack stood frozen, staring at the woman in the center of the clearing. Lyra, the girl they had mocked, the girl they had called Wolfless, the same girl who had just defeated a powerful alpha and saved their lives. Lyra's calm eyes moved slowly across the pack. Some wolves lowered their heads in shame. Others could not even meet her gaze. The truth was impossible to ignore now. They had been terribly wrong about her. Damon stepped forward slowly. The mate bond between them pulsed stronger than ever. His wolf stirred restlessly beneath his skin. It recognized her power. It recognized its mate. But Damon's heart felt heavy, because he also remembered the night he had rejected her. In front of everyone, Lyra watched him approach without expression. Her face was calm, controlled, but the distance in her eyes was unmistakable. Damon stopped a few steps away. For a moment, the powerful alpha who ruled the pack seemed unsure of what to say. Finally, he spoke. "You saved the pack." His voice was quiet. Lyra tilted her head slightly. "I saved innocent wolves," she replied calmly. Her words were not cruel, but they were not warm either. The difference was clear. Damon felt it immediately. The connection between them was no longer what it once could have been. "I didn't expect you to come back," he admitted. Lyra's eyes flickered briefly. "Neither did I." A heavy silence filled the clearing again. The warriors around them waited nervously. Everyone knew this moment mattered. Damon took another step closer. "Lyra." The sound of her name felt strange on his lips now. But before he could continue, Lyra raised her hand slightly. "Don't." Her voice was calm but firm. Damon stopped. Lyra looked around at the warriors of the pack. "You have defended this territory for many years," she said. "But your enemies are growing stronger." Her gaze returned to Damon. "And your pack is vulnerable." Damon frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra's voice remained steady. "The wolf world is changing, and Darkfang will not survive if you continue leading it the same way." Her words hit the clearing like a quiet storm. Some of the warriors exchanged uneasy glances. No one had ever spoken to their alpha like that before. But Damon did not argue, because deep down, he knew she was right. Lyra turned toward the forest. I didn't come back to reclaim anything, she said. I came because innocent wolves were in danger. She began walking toward the tree line. The warriors parted slowly to let her pass. But before she disappeared into the shadows, Damon's voice called out behind her. Lyra, wait. She stopped, but she did not turn around. Damon's voice was heavier now, filled with something unfamiliar. Regret. I made a mistake. For the first time since returning. Lyra's expression softened slightly, but only for a moment. Then the calm mask returned. You made a choice, Alpha, she said quietly. And choices have consequences. With that, she stepped into the darkness of the forest, leaving the entire pack standing in stunned silence, and leaving Damon alone with the weight of his regret. Chapter 12. The night grew quiet again after Lyra disappeared into the forest. But the silence inside the Darkfang village felt different now. Heavy, uncomfortable. The warriors slowly returned to their homes, but no one spoke much. Every wolf was thinking about the same thing. Lyra, the girl they had rejected, had just saved them all. And now she was gone again. Inside the council hall, the pack elders gathered around the large stone table. Their expressions were tense. One of the older elders finally spoke. We cannot ignore what happened tonight. Another elder nodded slowly. The moon goddess chose her for a reason. A third elder sighed. And our Alpha rejected that bond. The room fell silent, because everyone knew the truth behind those words. Rejecting a fated mate was rare. Rejecting a moon-blessed mate was even worse. But rejecting someone who turned out to carry ancient royal power, that was almost unheard of. Meanwhile, Damon stood alone on the cliff overlooking the territory. The wind moved quietly through the trees below. His wolf was restless. The mate bond pulsed again in his chest, stronger than ever. And now he understood why. Lyra had changed. The power he had felt during the battle was unlike anything he had ever encountered. It was ancient, royal, and terrifyingly strong. Damon clenched his jaw. How did I not see it? He muttered to himself. Behind him, footsteps approached. Beta Rowan stepped beside him. You're thinking about her, Rowan said. Damon didn't answer. He didn't need to. Rowan looked toward the forest. She saved the pack tonight. Damon's voice was low. I know. Rowan crossed his arms. And the pack knows it too. Damon finally turned toward him. What are you trying to say? Rowan hesitated. But eventually, he spoke the truth. The warriors are talking. Damon's eyes narrowed slightly. About what? Rowan exhaled slowly. They're wondering what would have happened if you had accepted her. The words hit Damon harder than he expected. For the first time in his life, the Alpha of Darkfang felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Meanwhile, deep in the moonlit forest, Lyra stood beside the quiet river once again. The silver glow around her had faded, but the strength inside her remained. Arkan appeared beside her. You handled that well, the spirit wolf said. Lyra watched the moon reflect on the water. They deserved honesty. Arkan studied her carefully. You could have taken control of the pack tonight. Lyra shook her head slowly. A queen does not claim power from desperation. She earns loyalty. The ancient spirit wolf smiled. You are learning quickly. Lyra looked toward the distant Darkfang territory. Her voice became thoughtful. The wolf world is shifting. And this is only the beginning. Chapter 13. Morning arrived slowly over the Darkfang territory. The pack village looked different after the battle. Several homes were damaged. Warriors moved around quietly, repairing what they could. But the real tension was not the damage. It was the silence. No one spoke openly about it, But every wolf was thinking about the same thing. Lyra, the girl they once called weak, had returned like a force of nature. And then she had walked away again. Inside the council hall, the elders continued their discussion. One elder leaned forward slowly. News will spread. Another elder nodded. It already has. The room fell silent. A younger elder frowned. What do you mean? The older wolf sighed. Rival packs lost warriors last night. And wolves talk. His voice lowered. When they describe what they saw, every alpha in the region will hear about the silver wolf. The council exchanged uneasy looks. Because they all understood what that meant. Power always attracted attention. And Lyra had displayed power that few wolves had ever seen. Meanwhile, Damon walked through the village. Warriors greeted him respectfully. But something felt different. Before, they looked at him with certainty. Now there was something else in their eyes. Questions. Doubt. As he passed a group of younger wolves, he overheard a quiet conversation. That silver wolf, was it really Lyra? I swear it smelled like her. But how could someone that powerful be wolfless before? Damon kept walking. But their words stayed with him. Later that afternoon, Beta Rowan rushed into the council hall. His expression was serious. We have visitors approaching the border. Damon frowned. Which pack? Rowan hesitated. That's the problem. They're not from any nearby territory. A tense silence followed. Then who are they? Damon asked. Rowan exhaled slowly. Royal Guards. The room froze. Across the wolf world, there were only a few territories powerful enough to command royal guards. The wolf kingdoms. Powerful alphas who ruled vast lands and controlled dozens of smaller packs. If royal guards were approaching Darkfang territory, it meant someone important was coming. Minutes later, the guards entered the clearing. 6 enormous wolves walked in formation. Their armor gleamed in the sunlight. At their center stood a tall alpha with golden eyes. His presence radiated calm authority. Even Damon could feel the strength in his aura. The stranger studied the village carefully. Then his gaze settled on Damon. You are the alpha of this territory. It wasn't a question. Damon stepped forward confidently. I am. The stranger nodded once. My name is Kale. His golden eyes sharpened slightly. And I am searching for someone. Damon crossed his arms. Who? Kale's voice remained calm. The silver wolf, who defeated an alpha here last night. The clearing went silent again. Every warrior present knew exactly who he was talking about. Kale continued. Reports say she carries the power of the Moon Queen. His gaze swept across the pack slowly. And the wolf kingdoms do not ignore power like that. Damon felt his chest tighten. Because he already knew where this conversation was going. Kale's next words confirmed it. I have come to find her. And bring her to the kingdoms. Chapter 14. The Darkfang village had never felt so tense. Royal guards stood calmly near the center of the clearing, their golden armor reflecting the afternoon sun. Every wolf in the pack watched them carefully. Visitors from the wolf kingdoms were extremely rare. And when they did arrive, it usually meant something important was about to change. The royal alpha stood tall among his guards. His golden eyes scanned the village quietly. Finally, he spoke again. This silver wolf, where is she? No one answered immediately. Damon crossed his arms. She is not part of this pack anymore. The royal alpha tilted his head slightly. But she defended it. His voice was calm but firm. That makes her important. Damon's jaw tightened. The stranger's gaze sharpened. You rejected her. It was not said with judgment. Just simple observation. But the words still hit Damon harder than he expected. The royal alpha continued. The kingdoms have been searching for signs of the Moon Queen's bloodline for many years. A murmur spread through the pack warriors. The Moon Queen. Most wolves believed she was only a legend. But the power Lyra displayed the night before, that had felt very real. Damon frowned. And what exactly do you want with her? The Royal Alpha answered without hesitation. To bring her to the kingdoms. His voice carried quiet authority. A wolf with that power should not remain hidden in the forest. Damon's wolf growled beneath his skin. Something inside him didn't like the direction of this conversation. The Royal Alpha's next words made it even worse. If she truly carries the Moon bloodline. He paused slightly. Then she may be destined to rule far more than a single pack. The clearing went silent again. Some of the Darkfang wolves looked at each other nervously. Rule. Lyra. Damon felt something twist in his chest. Because suddenly, a terrible realization formed in his mind. If the Royal Alpha took Lyra away, she might never return. Beta Rowan stepped forward cautiously. And if she refuses? The Royal Alpha gave a small smile. I don't intend to force her. His golden eyes softened slightly. But I would like to meet her. Damon turned away abruptly. I'll find her. Several wolves looked surprised. Even Rowan blinked. The Royal Alpha studied Damon carefully. You think she will listen to you? Damon didn't answer immediately. But his voice was firm when he finally spoke. She deserves to hear the truth from me. Without another word, Damon shifted into his wolf form. His massive black wolf landed on the ground with a heavy thud. The Alpha looked toward the distant forest. Somewhere out there, Lyra was walking her own path. And now 2 powerful Alphas were searching for her. With a powerful leap, Damon ran toward the trees. Behind him, the Royal Alpha watched calmly. A faint smile touched his face. This should be interesting, he said quietly. Chapter 15. The forest was quiet as evening slowly settled over the land. Golden sunlight filtered through the tall trees. Lyra stood beside the river once again. The water moved gently across the stones, reflecting the fading light. Moments like this had become rare. Peaceful. Quiet. For the first time in her life, Lyra finally felt in control of who she was. Her wolf stirred calmly within her. Strong. Confident. But suddenly, her ears twitched slightly. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Moving quickly through the forest. Lyra didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The mate bond pulsed in her chest again. Damon. A moment later, the massive black wolf emerged from the trees. He shifted back into human form as he approached. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The air between them felt heavier than before. Lyra finally turned to face him. You found me. Damon nodded slowly. It wasn't hard. Lyra folded her arms. That bond again. Damon didn't deny it. Yes. Silence fell again. The sound of the river filled the space between them. Damon studied her carefully. She looked different now. Stronger. Calmer. There was confidence in the way she stood that had never been there before. You've changed, he said quietly. Lyra gave a small smile. I had to. Damon looked down briefly. Then he spoke the words he had been holding in since the battle. I shouldn't have rejected you. The honesty in his voice surprised even himself. Lyra's expression did not change. You didn't just reject me, she replied calmly. You humiliated me. Damon closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered that night too clearly. The whispers. The laughter. The pain in her eyes. I know, he admitted. Lyra watched him carefully. And now? Damon lifted his head again. Now I know I was wrong. Lyra walked a few steps closer to the river. The moon was beginning to rise above the trees. You didn't believe in me, she said softly. You believed the pack. Damon's voice was low. I believed what I saw. Lyra turned back toward him. And what do you see now? Damon hesitated. Then he answered honestly. The most powerful wolf I've ever met. The wind moved gently through the trees. For a moment, the tension between them softened slightly. But Lyra's voice remained calm. It's too late for that to matter. Damon's chest tightened. Before he could respond, Lyra continued. You didn't come here just to apologize. Her sharp eyes studied him. Something else is going on. Damon exhaled slowly. You're right. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Then say it. Damon looked directly into her eyes. The wolf kingdoms are looking for you. Lyra blinked once. That didn't take long. Damon frowned. You knew this would happen. Lyra looked toward the distant mountains. Power always attracts attention. Damon took a step closer. The Royal Alpha is already in Darkfang. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. Already? Damon nodded. He wants to take you to the kingdoms. The forest grew quiet again. Lyra stared toward the horizon. And for the first time, even she looked slightly surprised. Chapter 16. The moon had risen high above the forest. Its pale light spilled across the river like silver glass. Lyra stood quietly beside the water, thinking about what Damon had just told her. The wolf kingdoms were already searching for her. Faster than she expected. Damon stood a few steps behind her, watching her carefully. You don't seem surprised, he said. Lyra shrugged slightly. I knew my power wouldn't stay hidden forever. Damon frowned. You're talking about it like it doesn't matter. Lyra finally turned toward him. It matters. Her voice was calm but steady. But it doesn't change who I am. Before Damon could respond, a new voice suddenly echoed through the forest. That depends. Both of them turned instantly. A tall figure stepped out from between the trees. The man moved with quiet confidence. His golden eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. Even without shifting into his wolf form, his presence radiated powerful alpha authority. Lyra studied him carefully. You must be the Royal Alpha. The stranger smiled slightly. And you must be Lyra. Damon's body tensed immediately. How did you find us? He demanded. The Royal Alpha's smile widened a little. I didn't. His golden gaze moved toward Lyra. She did. Lyra frowned slightly. What? Kale gestured calmly. Power leaves a trail. Especially power like yours. The air grew quiet again. Lyra crossed her arms. So you came all this way just to track me down? Kale nodded once. Yes. He studied her carefully, almost like he was confirming something. Then he spoke again. The reports about you were impressive. Damon growled softly. Say what you came to say. Kale didn't even look at him. His attention remained on Lyra. The wolf kingdoms have waited centuries for someone like you. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. And what exactly does that mean? Kale's voice was calm, but filled with certainty. It means you don't belong to a single pack. He paused slightly. You belong to the throne. The words hung in the air. Even Damon felt the weight of them. Lyra tilted her head. You're offering me a crown. Kale gave a small, respectful nod. I'm offering you your birthright. The forest wind moved softly through the trees. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kale added one final sentence. Come with me, Lyra. Become the queen the wolf world has been waiting for. Damon's heart sank. Because suddenly, this was no longer just about a rejected mate. Now it was about a throne. And he might already be too late. Chapter 17. The forest grew quiet after Kale's offer. Even the wind seemed to pause between the trees. Lyra stood still, studying the royal alpha carefully. His expression showed no arrogance, no pressure, just calm certainty, as if he already believed she would accept. Damon stepped forward suddenly. You don't get to decide her future. His voice was sharp, protective. Kale finally turned his golden gaze toward him. For the first time, the two powerful alphas truly faced each other. I'm not deciding anything, Kale replied calmly. I'm revealing the truth. Damon frowned. What truth? Kale's attention shifted back to Lyra. The Moon Queen was not just a legend. Lyra's expression grew serious. I already know that much. Kale nodded. But what you don't know? His voice lowered slightly. Is that the throne she once held has been empty for centuries. The river flowed quietly behind them. Lyra crossed her arms. And that concerns me how? Kale answered without hesitation. Because you are the last heir. The words struck the air like thunder. Even Damon went still. Lyra stared at him. That's impossible. Kale shook his head slowly. The bloodline of the Moon Queen was nearly destroyed long ago. Most of her descendants disappeared. But the power you displayed, his golden eyes glowed faintly, belongs only to that bloodline. Lyra felt her heart beat a little faster. Arkan's voice echoed in her memory. Your family carried the blood of the Moon Queen. She had believed it meant distant ancestry, not something this big. Damon spoke again. You expect her to just believe that? Kale's calm expression didn't change. I don't expect belief. He gestured toward Lyra. I expect her to feel the truth. Lyra remained silent for several seconds. Then she asked quietly, and if what you're saying is true? Kale's voice became serious. Then the wolf world has been waiting for you. The moonlight seemed brighter suddenly. Lyra looked toward the distant mountains again. The wolf kingdoms. The throne. A destiny she had never imagined. Kale took one step closer. You were never meant to live your life as a forgotten wolf in a single pack. You were meant to lead them all. Damon clenched his fists. And what happens to Darkfang if she leaves? Kale finally looked at him again. That depends on the choices you make next. The tension between them filled the forest. Lyra stood between two powerful futures. One alpha who once rejected her, and another offering her a crown. The path she chose next would change the fate of every wolf in the world. Chapter 18. The moon hung high above the forest. Silver light spilled across the river as the three wolves stood in silence. Lyra's mind raced with everything she had just learned. The Moon Queen's throne. The lost bloodline. The possibility of ruling the wolf world. It was far more than she had ever imagined when she left Darkfang. Kale watched her patiently. He did not rush her. Take your time, he said calmly. A decision like this cannot be made lightly. Damon's chest tightened, because every moment of silence made the future feel more uncertain. Finally, Lyra turned toward him. You haven't said anything. Damon looked down for a moment, then back at her. There's nothing I can say that will erase what I did. The honesty in his voice surprised even Kale. Lyra studied him carefully. And yet you came looking for me. Damon nodded slowly. Yes. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. Why? Damon took a step forward. Because I realized something too late. The wind moved softly through the trees. Damon continued. When I rejected you, I thought I was protecting my pack. Lyra raised an eyebrow. From me. Damon shook his head. From uncertainty. His voice became heavier. But I didn't realize I was pushing away the very wolf who would one day save us. Lyra remained silent. Damon's next words came slowly. I was wrong. Then something unexpected happened. Damon lowered himself to one knee. Both Lyra and Kale froze. The Alpha of Darkfang. Kneeling. Damon lifted his head and met Lyra's gaze. I rejected the mate the moon goddess gave me. His voice was steady. But if there is even the smallest chance to fix that mistake. He paused. I will spend the rest of my life earning it. The forest fell silent again. Even Kale looked surprised. Because powerful alphas rarely humbled themselves like this. Lyra stared at Damon for several seconds. Her expression unreadable. Then she spoke softly. You rejected a wolfless girl. Damon didn't look away. I know. Lyra's voice grew stronger. That girl begged for acceptance. The wind rustled through the trees. Damon remained on his knee. I know. Lyra took a step closer to him. But I'm not that girl anymore. Damon nodded slowly. I see that now. Kale watched the moment carefully. Then he spoke again. And that is exactly why the kingdoms need you. Lyra looked toward him. Kale's golden eyes were calm. You can rule beside me. Become the queen the wolf world has been waiting for. The weight of the choice returned once again. One path led to a throne. The other led back to the pack that once rejected her. Lyra stood between two futures. And the entire wolf world waited for her answer. Chapter 19. The moonlight shimmered across the river. For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. Two powerful alphas stood before her. One had once rejected her. The other had offered her a throne. The forest held its breath. Kale remained calm, his golden eyes steady. Damon still knelt in the grass, waiting. Not demanding. Not commanding. Just waiting. Lyra slowly walked past Damon and stopped near the river. The water reflected the moon above. Her reflection stared back at her. A girl who had once been called Wolfless. A slave to the pack's judgment. Unwanted. Unclaimed. She remembered the whispers. The humiliation. The day Damon rejected her in front of everyone. But she also remembered something else. The moment her wolf awakened. The moment she realized she was stronger than anyone believed. Lyra turned back toward the two alphas. You both keep talking about what I'm supposed to be. Her voice was calm. But neither of you asked what I actually want. Kale inclined his head respectfully. Then tell us. Damon remained silent. Lyra stepped forward again. I will not return to Darkfang as a broken mate. Her words hit Damon like a blade. But he didn't move. I will not be a trophy queen either. Kale raised an eyebrow slightly. Lyra's eyes burned with quiet determination. For too long, wolves have been ruled by pride and power. She looked toward the distant mountains. That ends now. The air seemed to grow heavier. Lyra continued. I will claim the moon throne. Kale smiled faintly. But she lifted a hand before he could speak. But not as your queen. His expression changed. I will rule alone. Silence exploded across the forest. Even Damon looked shocked. Lyra's voice grew stronger. The wolf world doesn't need another alpha controlling the throne. It needs balance. The Moon Queen ruled alone for a reason. Kale studied her carefully. Then slowly nodded. You truly are her heir. Lyra finally turned toward Damon. He was still kneeling. Still waiting. She walked toward him slowly. Then stopped in front of him. You rejected me when I was weak. Damon nodded quietly. Yes. Lyra continued. But you were also the only alpha brave enough to come after me when I left. Damon looked up slightly. Hope flickered in his eyes. Lyra spoke again. If you want a place beside me. She paused. Then you will earn it. Damon lowered his head again. I will. Lyra turned toward the rising moon. Her voice carried through the forest. Let the wolf world hear this. The moon throne is no longer empty. The wind rushed through the trees, and somewhere deep within the forest, wolves began to howl. A new queen had risen. Chapter 20. The news spread faster than the wind across the wolf territories. From the deepest forests to the tallest mountains, one message echoed through every pack. The moon throne had been claimed. For centuries, the throne had remained empty. Alphas ruled their territories. Packs fought for dominance, and the wolf world slowly fell into chaos. But now, everything was about to change. Days later, the ancient stone arena of the wolf kingdoms filled with wolves from every land. Powerful alphas, elders, warriors, all had come to witness the moment history would remember. At the center of the arena stood the moon throne, carved from silver stone, glowing faintly beneath the light of the full moon. Kale stood beside the throne, watching the gathering crowd. For the first time in years, the powerful royal alpha looked almost relieved. Because the wolf world had finally found the leader it needed. A distant howl echoed through the mountains. Then another, and another. The sound rolled like thunder through the valley. The wolves had arrived. A path slowly opened through the massive crowd, and Lyra stepped forward. The moment she entered the arena, the energy in the air shifted. Her presence felt different now. Stronger, commanding. Her silver eyes glowed faintly beneath the moonlight. This was no longer the girl who had been rejected. This was the wolf who had awakened her true power. Kale stepped forward. The wolf world has waited centuries for this moment. His voice carried across the arena. The moon throne has found its rightful heir. The crowd fell silent, every wolf watching her, waiting. Lyra walked slowly toward the throne, each step steady, confident, unshaken. Before she reached the throne, she stopped. Her eyes scanned the crowd, and they found him. Damon stood among the alphas, not at the front, not demanding attention, just watching her quietly. Lyra studied him for a moment. Then she continued walking. She stepped onto the platform, turned toward the thousands of wolves gathered below, and finally sat upon the moon throne. The moment she did, a powerful wave of energy surged through the arena. The wind roared across the mountains. Every wolf felt it. The ancient power of the Moon Queen had returned. One by one, the alphas began to kneel. First the smaller packs, then the larger ones. Finally, Kale himself bowed his head respectfully. The Moon Queen has risen. The wolves erupted into howls that shook the night sky. But Lyra's eyes moved through the crowd again, until they found Damon. He stepped forward slowly. The alpha of Darkfang walked through the kneeling wolves, then stopped before the throne. For a moment, their eyes met. No anger, no bitterness, just history. Damon lowered himself onto one knee, not as an alpha demanding power, but as a wolf offering loyalty. Lyra looked down at him. "You once rejected me." Damon nodded. "Yes." Lyra's voice was calm but powerful. "Now you kneel before me." Damon lifted his head slightly. "I kneel before my queen." The wind moved gently across the arena. Lyra studied him for a moment longer. Then she stood. The crowd watched closely. She stepped down from the throne platform and stopped in front of him. "Stand, Damon." He obeyed, slowly rising. Lyra's voice carried across the arena. "If you wish to stand beside the Moon Queen." She paused. "Then prove you are worthy of her." Damon's eyes burned with determination. "I will." Lyra turned back toward the throne, and the wolves who now looked to her for guidance. Her voice rose across the mountains. "The wolf world will no longer be ruled by fear. No pack will stand above another. We rise together." The crowd erupted again. Howls filled the night, and beneath the light of the full moon, a new era for the wolves had begun. The era of the Moon Queen. But Damon's journey to prove himself had only just begun. If you want part 2 of this story, make sure you subscribe. And thanks for watching.